Portland homeowners are spending $150,000 on additions that don't come back at resale, and I see this every single day. That's why so many people are leaving the city for the suburbs. The math on upsizing in the city has broken down, and 5 specific towns outside of it are where the money makes sense. I'll break down each one so you know exactly where to look. Let me start with a quick story about a buyer I talked to a little while ago. They had a 2-bedroom home inside the city. They bought it a few years ago, built some equity, and then, like a lot of families, they outgrew the place. So they did what they're supposed to do. They started looking for their next home. Stepping up in a bigger home in Portland meant landing somewhere in the high $600,000 to $800,000 range with a payment jump to match. Most buyers expect that part. What they don't expect is the lot. At $700,000, you're still on a tight city lot. You're not getting much of a backyard or much space between you and your neighbors. What you're getting is a bigger version of the same setup on a small city lot. Some buyers think, fine, we'll add on instead. But the reality is, construction costs in southern Maine are running somewhere between $250 and $350 or more per square foot for new work. A single addition, like a primary suite, a family room, or a mudroom, can easily run $100,000 to $175,000. On a home worth $500,000 to $550,000, that money doesn't come back dollar for dollar when you sell. You've spent $150,000 and you still have a slightly bigger house on the same tight lot. The Portland Press-Herald documented the same cycle in early 2025. Real estate agents in Greater Portland are now using the phrase $500,000 starter home like it's normal. One thing to keep in mind as we go through the list, there's a suburb coming up where the school ranking, beach access, and a major new development are all hitting at the same time. And that market is already reacting. Stay tuned. But for now, there's another part that makes the math harder. Some of the people in those Portland homes are still holding pandemic mortgage rates, 2.75%, 3%, somewhere in that range. Trading that rate for something in the mid to high 6s means the payment jumps fast, even if the price doesn't go up by that much. So they're stuck. Stay and feel cramped, add on and lose money, or move out and absorb the rate difference. Now, more buyers are choosing that third option. They're moving out where the lots are bigger and the monthly payment on a nicer home may not be that much more than what an addition would have cost to build. And the first place where the math starts to work is Portland's closest neighbor. But before we get into that, if you've built equity in Portland and you're trying to figure out where to put it, I work with buyers on this kind of move every single day. My contact info is in the description, so shoot me a message and let's figure out which town makes the most sense for you. Now back to the suburbs. The first spot on this list couldn't be anything else. It's basically a smaller version of Portland, or Junior Portland as I like to call it. Westbrook is 10 minutes from downtown, and the prices are still in the high 400s to low 500s. For buyers who've been fighting through the market, this combo hits hard in a good way. You're about 7 miles from the old port, close enough that your commute barely changes. You get Portland proximity without paying Portland prices. But the trade-off is real, and I want to be straight with you about it. You're not getting the walkability of Portland's West End, and your lot probably doesn't feel like the same private retreat. This place is dense, close, and it doesn't have the same polished feel as Falmouth or Scarborough. If you want a big spread of land, this probably isn't your town. But Westbrook is changing in a way almost no other suburb is in this market. And a big part of that is Rock Row. It's a 110-acre mixed-use project already taking shape in town. The health campus is already open, and the food hall, with seating for hundreds, is open too. There's also a conference and event center planned to be the largest in Maine when it's finished. And around all of that, there's also thousands of residential units in the works. The project already draws millions of visitors every year, so this is a major destination that's still being built. And that's the part buyers need to watch. When you buy into a town while the build-out is still going on, you're usually buying before the full price jump shows up. Buyers getting into Westbrook now are ahead of the pricing curve. You give up a little polish and gain momentum. So this is the entry point. But the next town on this list is where the math around schools and ocean access changes. There's nothing else like it in Greater Portland. Most buyers come to Falmouth for the schools. Then they realize there's a harbor with over 1,000 boats sitting in the water, the largest recreational anchorage and mooring field north of Marblehead, Massachusetts. And there's more. Portland Yacht Club is here. Handy Boat is here. So you've got 2 very different reasons to live in the same town, layered right on top of each other. The schools are real. Falmouth Public Schools ranks as the 3rd best school school district in Maine on Niche's 2026 rankings, behind Cape Elizabeth. You've got a 10-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio, a 95% graduation rate, and an A+ in academics. That's Department of Education data. And if boating is part of why you moved to Maine, this is where that life is available. Falmouth is in the $900,000 range to start, typically. Zillow's index and Redfin's recent data both land there, and anything with real land or coastal access pushes past $1 million. And I'm going to break down what all the suburb movement says about where the market's heading and what it means if you're planning to buy or sell in the next year. So stay with me. Now, if you have the budget and you're in, Falmouth delivers. But if you're stretching to get there, you may end up in a smaller, older home, or even in an area that doesn't feel like the Falmouth you had in your head. The prestige is real, and so is the price. Now, there's a town just a few miles from here that sits at almost the same price point, but gives you something different for that money. Take the Falmouth budget and come home to a different version of Maine. Cumberland comes in at a similar price point, but a little bit more affordable in sections, with most single-family homes in the mid-$700,000 range. You still get similar access to Portland, about 15 to 20 minutes away. Also, both have schools in the top tier statewide. MSAD 51, which covers Cumberland and North Yarmouth, ranks among the top 5 school districts in Maine on Niche's 2026 list. By any measure in this market, both are luxury zip codes. Portland gives you the proximity and ocean access. Cumberland gives you space and privacy. I see this play out regularly. Buyers at the Falmouth budget step into Cumberland and realize they've been chasing water access when what they really wanted was land. Properties here have real space between homes, the kind of distance that's hard to find at any price closer to the city. Custom homes, colonials on large lots, and newer construction on multi-acre parcels. The harbor sounded good, but the acreage sounds even better. Now on taxes, Cumberland's mill rate looks high compared to nearby towns, but the town is mid-cycle on a reevaluation happening this year. Once the assessments update, the rate should drop, and the real burden should come more in line with surrounding towns. Run the actual math with local professionals, because the proper rate isn't the whole picture. So if you're buying for the harbor, Falmouth is the play. But if you're buying for land, privacy, and room to breathe, Cumberland may be a better fit. Just make sure you know exactly which version of Maine you actually want. And if both of those price points are out of reach, the next suburb is where the best pure upsizing value in Greater Portland is. What would it cost to get a newer home on an acre or two with a real yard in a town with well-regarded schools? In most of the suburbs we've covered, that question doesn't even have a clean answer. In Gorham, it does. You're 25 to 35 minutes to Portland, that's the trade-off, and I'm not going to soften it at all. This place is further out. If being 10 minutes to the old port is non-negotiable, this probably isn't your town. Homes are in the mid-600s with newer construction on good lots pushing into the low 700s. For that money, you can find a larger, newer home with a good-sized yard, something that would cost $150,000 to $200,000 more at least in the last 2 suburbs we talked to. An acre or two, space for a garden and a fire pit, room for kids to run outside. That's what Gorham gives you that closer suburbs at this price usually can't. And the schools rank in the top dozen statewide, with strong teacher quality, strong graduation rates, and good reputation across the board. I wouldn't sell it as a Falmouth or Cumberland school style, because they're not. But for most families making a practical move, top dozen in Maine is a real good school district. And Gorham might be the clearest example of how the greater Portland market is changing. We'll get into that more in a bit, so keep watching. But there's also a large development working through the planning process at the former golf course on McLeland Road, with potentially hundreds of units over the next 15 to 18 years. It's still early. I wouldn't treat this as a near-term driver, but it does show you a town that's still growing, which means buyers are getting in now ahead of the supply curve. So this town is where the upsizing math starts to make sense. The next one is where urgency starts to make sense. And it also is one getting more buyer activity than anywhere else on the list. While the other suburbs we talked about have been gaining ground, Scarborough has been moving faster. Prices have climbed noticeably over the past year. Well-priced homes are moving quickly, and buyers who come in without the right local knowledge are getting beaten again and again. This is the town with real heat behind it. You're 15 to 20 minutes south of Portland, and you've got 3 town-accessible beaches: Pine Point, Ferry Beach, and Higgins Beach. Non-resident passes for the 2026 season sold out on April 30th, and the town has already been fielding interest for the 2027 season. The school ranks 6th in the state on Niche's 2026 rankings, with top grades in academics, teachers, and sports. And voters just approved a nearly $140 million for school buildings across a ballot question that passed last year. That covers a new school, major renovations, and a middle school expansion. This is a community betting on itself in a very public, very serious way. Then there's the Downs. The former Scarborough Downs racetrack, which closed in 2020, is a now 577-acre mixed-use development taking shape in real time. Hundreds of residential units have already been sold or delivered, with more than 1,000 planned in total. A new town center is also under construction with retail, restaurants, and more commercial space. Market Basket is coming in, along with a 5-story mixed-use building and housing across the ground floor and local businesses. The developer calls it Maine's first town center, and at this point, it's not just a rendering. And for buyers coming from away, Scarborough sits right on the Interstate 95. It means Portsmouth, New Hampshire is about an hour south, and Boston is about 90 minutes. If you work remotely but travel south a few times a month, or if one person in the house commutes to New Hampshire, this place has access advantage that's hard to beat. But if you're considering Scarborough, don't wait around assuming prices are going to soften. At the pace this market has been moving, waiting can cost you real money. And once you understand what's driving all of this, the decision gets a lot clearer. That's what we'll discuss now. The everyone is fleeing Portland narrative doesn't hold up. That's the reality. Portland is not failing, the market is still competitive, expensive, and the most active in Maine. The median price sits in the mid 500,000s. Well-priced properties will still move fast, and that's not changing. What is changing is the belief people brought with them when they moved here. There was a real sense, especially among buyers coming from Boston or New York, that you needed to be inside the city to access the quality of life, the walkability, the restaurant scene, the culture, and the waterfront vibe. If you were landing in a new state and didn't know your way around yet, this made sense. But Maine has never been built around walkable living in the same way, and I see this every single day. People moved into Portland during the boom, lived there for 2 or 3 years, and started to notice something. The Maine they came for, the outdoor space, the water, the quiet mornings, the room to breathe, it's hard to get on a tight city lot. You get more of that in the suburbs we saw today. The Portland Press-Herald documented this same trend. Pandemic-era buyers are now speeding up the move outside the city, not delaying it. And the lock-in math we covered earlier, the pandemic-era interest rates, the payment jump, has kept Portland's supply tight on top of everything else. For buyers who are ready to move, one direction keeps coming up. Maine's lifestyle is car-based and outdoors-oriented. Skiing, hiking, kayaking, beach days, backyard fires, boats in the water. Portland gives you the restaurants, the events, the ferries to the islands, and that's worth something. But for a growing number of buyers, the life they moved here to live is easier to access from the suburbs than from an address on a tight city lot. The market is also normalizing after years of strong growth, with more moderate growth projected across the region. This means buyers can't count on rapid appreciation to cover up a bad location choice. Location math matters more in a normalizing market. And for buyers, the math is pointing outside of the city. So Portland will always be the city. But for a lot of people making a move right now, being 15 to 20 minutes outside starts to feel like a whole reason to move. The suburbs aren't just a fallback anymore. For a lot of buyers, they're the first choice. It really comes down to finding the town that fits the kind of life you want day to day. If you're ready to make a match on a specific town and you want to know what's available, email me. I'll tell you what I'm seeing on the ground this week and where the best opportunities are before they move. Now, you just saw which suburbs people are moving to. The video linked here ranks all of them from worst to best based on how they feel to live day to day. That's the one to watch next. We'll see you there.